If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, this might sting a little, but let's talk about something that's been quietly brewing beneath the surface. Something that, if handled right, could completely reshape the future of this franchise. We're talking about Myles Garrett, the face of Cleveland's defense, one of the most dominant pass rushers in the league, and a player who's been carrying this team's defense on his back for years. He's putting up elite numbers once again this season, 22 tackles, 10 sacks in just 8 games. But here's the harsh truth. Those numbers aren't translating into wins. The Browns sit at 2-6, and despite Garrett's monster performances, the franchise is once again staring down the barrel of another wasted season. So, the question becomes unavoidable. Should the Browns actually entertain the idea of trading Myles Garrett before the NFL deadline? On the surface, it sounds crazy, right? Trading one of the most talented defensive players in the league, a guy who could be a Hall of Famer one day, seems like football blasphemy. But if you look a little deeper, you start to see the logic. Right now, according to reports from Adam Schefter, sources close to the Browns are saying there's no chance, zero, nada, that Garrett gets traded. One even said, people have a better chance of winning the lottery. That's about as emphatic as it gets. The Browns clearly see Garrett as untouchable, the cornerstone of their defense, and they just extended him with a major contract in the offseason. From their perspective, it makes sense. He's still in his prime. He's a leader, he's productive, and he represents the heart of a defense that, on paper, looks capable of greatness. But here's where things get complicated. Football isn't just about having stars. It's about building rosters, managing cap space, and preparing for the long-term window when your team can actually compete. The Browns, at 2-6, are nowhere near that window right now. And that's why it might be time for Cleveland to start thinking more like a rebuilding franchise than one pretending to contend. The Browns have already laid some promising foundations for the future. Their recent drafts have shown glimpses of brilliance. Second-round picks like Quinshon Judkins and Carson Schweissinger look like legitimate building blocks, players who could be part of a young, hungry core for years to come. And let's not forget, the Browns are still searching for their long-term answer at quarterback. Whether that's Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, they're both young, they both have upside, and they both need time and talent around them to develop properly. The Browns' best path forward might be through patience and strategic rebuilding, not clinging to a few veteran stars while finishing at the bottom of the standings every year. If the Browns truly embrace that idea, trading Myles Garrett could become the move that transforms their future. Think about it. Garrett is one of the very few players in the entire NFL who could realistically net multiple first-round picks in a trade. If Cleveland picked up the phone and called a Super Bowl contender desperate for an elite edge rusher, say, the Baltimore Ravens, the Dallas Cowboys, the Detroit Lions, or even the San Francisco 49ers, the offers would pour in. A package of 2 first-rounders plus a day 2 pick or a young player would not be out of the question. In fact, it might be the exact type of haul a rebuilding team like Cleveland needs. Now imagine this scenario. Cleveland moves Garrett before the deadline, and in return, they pick up 2 first-round selections in 2026 along with a second-rounder in 2025. They'd already be sitting pretty with 2 first-rounders in 2026 from the Travis Hunter trade with the Jaguars. Add a few more top-tier picks, and suddenly the Browns would have the kind of draft capital to reshape the entire roster in a span of 2 seasons. That's not just rebuilding. That's reloading with purpose. It's about shifting from short-term loyalty to long-term vision. And for a team that's been spinning its wheels for years, that might be the smartest move they could make. Of course, the idea of trading Myles Garrett comes with massive risk, and that's what makes this conversation so polarizing. He's not just any player. He's the type of defensive force you can't easily replace. He's an all-pro, a captain, and a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. Losing him would send shockwaves through the locker room and the fan base. It would feel like waving the white flag on the 2025 season before it even starts. But here's the thing. Maybe that's exactly what the Browns should be doing. Because pretending to contend while sitting at 2-6 does nothing but prolong the pain. Garrett's production is elite, but his dominance hasn't been enough to mask the glaring weaknesses across the roster. Look no further than Week 9 against the Patriots. Garrett racked up 5 sacks in a single game, a performance for the ages, and the Browns still lost by 19 points. Let that sink in for a moment. You have one of the best defensive performances of the season from an individual player, and it still wasn't close. That's not a Garrett problem. That's a roster problem. You can have the best pass rusher in the league, but if your offense can't score, your secondary keeps giving up big plays, and your coaching staff can't make in-game adjustments, then those sacks become empty stats. At some point, you have to admit that one elite defensive end can't carry an entire franchise. Now, from a front office perspective, moving Garrett would be painful but practical. His contract extension means his cap hit will grow significantly over the next few years, and that could limit Cleveland's flexibility in free agency. Trading him before that hit balloons would allow the Browns to shed salary, open cap space, and position themselves to build a deeper, more balanced roster. It's the kind of hard decision that smart franchises make, the kind that hurts in the moment but pays off long-term. Just look at teams like the Detroit Lions or the Houston Texans. Both of those organizations hit reset, made some unpopular trades, stockpiled draft picks, and are now reaping the rewards with young, exciting cores and playoff potential. Cleveland could follow that blueprint, and Garrett could be the key to making it happen. Of course, you can't ignore the emotional side of this. Myles Garrett is loved in Cleveland. He's the kind of player fans buy jerseys for, the kind of name kids shout out when pretending to sack their friends in the backyard. Trading him would feel like tearing out the soul of the defense. But great franchises don't operate on emotion, they operate on vision. And right now, the Browns' vision should be crystal clear, build for 2026 and beyond. They've already shown commitment to the youth movement, investing in players like Judkins and Schweissinger, and taking chances on young quarterbacks with high ceilings. Adding more draft capital to that mix could accelerate the rebuild by years. And let's be honest, as much as we all love watching Myles Garrett dominate on Sundays, wouldn't it be better to watch the Browns actually win meaningful games again? Wouldn't it be better to see this franchise draft smart, build strong, and finally escape the endless cycle of mediocrity? Trading Garrett might hurt, but it could also be the kind of move that shifts Cleveland's trajectory for the next decade. Imagine landing a blue-chip offensive tackle, a dynamic wide receiver, and a lockdown corner, all with picks acquired from a Garrett trade. Suddenly, that 2-6 record starts to look like the bottom of a much steeper climb, one that ends with the Browns back in playoff contention for years. This isn't about disrespecting Myles Garrett or undervaluing what he's done for the team. It's about understanding that timing matters in the NFL. Garrett's prime years are being wasted on a team that can't keep up. By the time the Browns are ready to truly compete, if they ever get there under the current structure, Garrett will be nearing the end of his peak. Trading him now, while his value is sky high, could ensure that his legacy in Cleveland isn't one of frustration and wasted potential, but one of sacrifice for the greater good of the franchise. Because if that trade brings in the pieces that finally make the Browns winners, then Garrett's name will always be tied to the turnaround, even if he's doing his sacking elsewhere. So yes, it sounds radical. It sounds painful. It even sounds unfair. But the truth is, the Browns need to think bigger than one star. They need to think about the next 5 years, not just the next 5 games. They need to be bold enough to do what's uncomfortable, to make the kind of move that turns heads around the league and sets the stage for a real rebuild. Trading Myles Garrett before the deadline might not be popular, but it could be the spark that finally lights a new fire in Cleveland. Because the truth is, sometimes you have to let go of greatness today to build greatness tomorrow. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. Hold on to your helmets, folks, because the NFL rumor mill is spinning faster than ever today, and it involves one of the most electric young talents in the league, Garrett Wilson. The New York Jets, a team that has been under the microscope for years now, appear to have completely lost their minds, at least according to the latest whispers circulating around league insiders. Reports, which are still unconfirmed but have been described as credible by multiple sources, suggest that the Cleveland Browns have tabled a jaw-dropping, potentially franchise-altering offer to acquire Wilson. If this comes to fruition, it wouldn't just be a blockbuster trade. It would be seismic, sending shockwaves through the league and reshaping the futures of 2 teams in ways few could have predicted. The Browns, notoriously aggressive when it comes to chasing offensive weapons, seem to be doubling down on the idea that Wilson could be the missing piece to push them into elite status, and they're reportedly willing to offer more than anyone could have imagined. Now, let's break this down because the layers here are almost too much to digest. Garrett Wilson, the young, dynamic wide receiver out of the Jets, has been nothing short of sensational since entering the league. Known for his incredible route running, top-tier hands, and ability to create separation seemingly at will, Wilson has emerged as one of the brightest stars on an otherwise inconsistent Jets roster. And that, my friends, is exactly why this rumor is so explosive. The Browns, whose offense has often relied heavily on a combination of David Njoku's athleticism and a strong running game anchored by Nick Chubb, suddenly appear to be thinking, why settle for good when we can have elite? According to whispers from agents, front office insiders, and even some coaching staff members who have chosen to remain anonymous, Cleveland is reportedly prepared to offer a multi-asset deal that would include high draft picks, young talent, and potentially even a veteran player to sweeten the pot. Sources suggest that the Jets are reportedly intrigued but cautious, aware that trading away Wilson could fracture their fan base and potentially set back their long-term plans for a quarterback and wide receiver duo that is supposed to be a cornerstone for years to come. What's particularly fascinating about this rumor, and what makes it almost too good to ignore, is the timing. The NFL trade landscape is notoriously volatile, and teams often engage in rapid-fire negotiations behind closed doors before anything hits the public. For the Browns to be making a move for someone like Wilson at this juncture tells you a lot about their mindset. They're not just thinking about incremental improvement, they're thinking about transformation. Imagine the Browns' offensive playbook with Wilson running precise routes alongside Amari Cooper or David Njoku. Imagine defenses trying to scheme against a team that can spread the field, stretch zones, and force mismatches week after week. The potential for chaos, or rather, dominance, is enormous. And yet, this is still a rumor, albeit a rumor that insiders are treating with unprecedented seriousness. Multiple sources suggest that discussions are fluid, which in NFL terms can mean anything from very close to done to still exploratory but serious. The ambiguity, of course, is what keeps the rumor alive, feeding speculation and allowing fans from both New York and Cleveland to dream about what this could mean for their teams. It's also worth noting that the Jets' front office has historically been unpredictable when it comes to trades involving high-profile young talent. Some say this is a move that aligns with a long-term vision. Others warn that it could be a panic maneuver if the team feels its window to compete has narrowed. The Browns, for their part, are clearly sending a message. We are willing to go big, potentially risking draft capital and depth, for a player we believe can elevate us from playoff contenders to legitimate Super Bowl challengers. And that's exactly the kind of narrative that the league thrives on. The idea that a single bold move could alter the trajectories of multiple franchises. In this case, the ripple effects are substantial. If Wilson were to land in Cleveland, the Jets would be left scrambling to fill an enormous void in their passing game, potentially forcing a complete reevaluation of their quarterback development plans and offensive strategy. Meanwhile, the Browns would instantly gain a weapon capable of changing games with a single play, the kind of player who can turn a fourth-quarter deficit into a highlight reel victory. Of course, there are countless what-ifs that make this rumor tantalizing. What about contracts? Wilson's deal is still young, but how would the Browns structure a potential extension, especially if they're offering multiple assets up front? What about team chemistry? A player of Wilson's caliber brings not just talent, but also expectations and attention. How would Cleveland's locker room respond to such an influx of talent? And let's not forget the Jets' perspective. Could this be a smoke and mirrors tactic to drive up interest and value? Or are they truly contemplating parting ways with one of their brightest stars? According to insiders, the discussions are moving at a pace that suggests both teams are seriously considering all these factors. Negotiators are reportedly weighing each piece of the puzzle, from draft compensation to player fit to the intangible aspects of leadership and team culture. Every move, every suggestion, every counteroffer is being analyzed with surgical precision. And while nothing is set in stone, the very fact that this conversation is happening at all has sent social media into a frenzy, with fans speculating endlessly, debates raging in forums, and sports talk shows dissecting every leak. every hint, every body language cue from team executives. What's equally compelling is the ripple effect this could have across the league. When one franchise makes a bold play like this, it rarely exists in isolation. Rival teams will be forced to respond, either by shoring up their own rosters or by exploring trades of their own. For the AFC, in particular, this could change the balance of power in a way that reshapes playoff predictions, division races, and even Super Bowl betting odds. Analysts are already projecting potential scenarios, imagining games where Wilson's speed and route precision could be the X factor that determines outcomes in high-stakes matchups. Imagine a Browns offense that can spread the field with precision while maintaining a strong running game behind Nick Chubb. Imagine Wilson facing defenders who simply don't have an answer for his combination of athleticism and football IQ. The league, for one, is watching with bated breath, because if this deal actually materializes, it won't just be a headline. It will be a seismic shift that dominates NFL coverage for weeks, if not months. So here's where things stand, as far as the rumor mill can piece together. Discussions are ongoing, insiders are buzzing, and while no official statement has been made by either the Jets or the Browns, the chatter is loud enough to make anyone who follows the NFL take notice. Some are calling it an overreach by Cleveland, a gamble that could backfire spectacularly if it doesn't pan out. Others are calling it a visionary move, a bold statement that signals the Browns are serious about contending at the highest level. Either way, the story is unfolding in real time, and the excitement, or anxiety, among fans is palpable. Speculation is running wild, social media is ablaze, and commentators are theorizing about every possible outcome. It's a perfect storm of rumor, intrigue, and potential transformation. And if you're an NFL fan, this is exactly the kind of narrative that keeps you glued to your screen, refreshing Twitter and debating endlessly with your friends about what might happen next. In the end, whether Garrett Wilson remains a Jet or becomes a Brown could be decided in the next few days, or it could drag on as negotiations, leaks, and counteroffers swirl in the background. Either way, one thing is clear. This is a storyline that has everything: drama, high stakes, and a player whose talent makes the conversation not just plausible but exciting. For Cleveland, the chance to add a young star of Wilson's caliber could be the push they've been looking for, the missing piece to finally break through the AFC hierarchy. For New York, it's a test of strategy, patience, and foresight, and the implications of any decision will resonate far beyond a single season. The league may have seen blockbuster trades before, but the potential of this one, the sheer magnitude of the assets involved, and the talent at stake makes it a story that has captured the imagination of fans, analysts, and insiders alike. So buckle up, because the Jets and Browns are in the midst of what could be one of the most talked about trade sagas in recent memory, and every day brings a new twist, a new leak, and a new reason to believe that the NFL offseason just got a lot more interesting. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!